What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another video with me, Adam from Green Auto Services. Today we have the black Ford Focus back in with us because the air conditioning is not working. Main reason for this one is that the gas has been escaping because there's a hole in the condenser. If you have an AC system and you can hear a bit of a hissing noise when you're turning it on, it normally indicates that the system doesn't have enough or is completely depleted of gas. So if you want to learn more about AC systems and want to know exactly how to change out a condenser in a Ford Focus, stay tuned. We're going to tell you everything you're going to need to know. Okay, here we are. So we have got a head start on what we need to do. So just to let you know what I've done already, to get started, you want to get the vehicle jacked up and on axle stands, be nice and safe, because basically to get the condenser out you need to remove the radiator with it. It comes as a package. This can only be dropped out of the bottom of the vehicle, so you do need to jack it up as high as you can safely to be able to give it enough space to come out the bottom. Now, just to let you know what I've already done, I've just gone underneath the car and I've removed the under tray. So you'll end up removing that small trim first, followed by the under tray, followed by the actual front trim itself. Now this is important because the bottom of the condenser and the radiator sits just above that, plus it is also where you have the drain plug for the radiator, because as we're going to be removing the radiator, we do need to drain all of the coolant. And there is a very convenient little drain plug, which I'll just take you over and show you now, which under the vehicle, as we're looking in front of us, is to the left-hand side. It is this red tap here that you just turn left to open it, and it will drain the coolant out of the bottom, and you want to put it straight into a container. That's already been done, so as you can see it's just dripping, so the radiator is now empty. I can now crack on and get the middle radiator hose off as well as the lower radiator hose, and then we're hopefully going to drop this whole section out in one piece. Okay, and whilst we're down here as well, because we're going to be taking the cooling fan out with everything attached, we do want to disconnect it from the module just up here. Now if you can just see, let's see if I can get you zoomed in, there is a large connector just here that we need to unclip, and we also need to unclip it from the housing there so we don't pull down the wire with it. Okay, so I've just gone ahead and disconnected that big multi-plug, and the good news is that it is just one big push tab. So you need to get your thumb on the end of that tab, push it down, and then pull the plug off. That was actually quite easy, so you shouldn't have a problem. Okay, so when it comes to removing the radiator hoses, they are held on with these self-sprung loaded clips. Now, basically you do need to get yourself a decent pair of grips. Grip these two ears here and squeeze them together. Now, if you squeeze them together close enough, there is actually a little locking tab that will actually hold it in the open position for you to get it off. Now this one was fairly straightforward, and in a moment we're just going to prise this hose off the bottom of the radiator. However, this one up here, because of the way the clip is orientated, is very tricky to get to. Now what you can see, I actually have a special tool which is hooked on to either side of the ears. I'll tell you what, let me just unhook that. Okay, so this is the end of the tool, and it's attached to a big handle via a cable, and what happens as I squeeze the handle, these clips will actually retract in on themselves just like so and close up. So that's how it works. As you can see, the clip is orientated there and between the actual chassis leg, so it's a very small area, which is why I have this tool. And as you see, once you've got the clip on, you can then just squeeze the tool, and that now it's got quite a fair bit of force, so I have to use two hands, but as I squeeze that will open up the clip and allow me just to move it off. And now I've got the tool squeezed in, and it does actually have a lock on the side of it so it doesn't let go. I can now just slowly maneuver that off, just like that, off the pipe. Okay, so for the purpose of this video, I've actually already gone ahead and removed the air box. Now, you do not have to remove this air box. The reason why I've done it is because it gives you a good view of the coolant hose that I've just disconnected, and I've just lifted that up and I've just tucked it out of the way. Now, you are going to get residual coolant drain, so make sure your receptacle is still down there. Now, this is also a good opportunity to show you that we do need to remove this coolant pipe, which is just here. Now, word of warning, these are plastic and over time they get very brittle. So we do need to remove this as one whole piece, but be very, very careful because these can easily snap. So there is one connector, which is, where are you? Hiding just down here on the radiator, and what I'm going to do is remove it and then show you how it's connected, and then it runs along at the top of the radiator cowling just via a few clips. So one there, one further down there, and so forth. But that pipe that connects to the radiator is the only thing we actually have to physically disconnect before we drop everything out. Okay, so here is the connector that goes into the radiator. Now, to pull this out, these two wings here, you want to push in to open out and very, very gently wiggle as you pull, and it should come out. And it will come out in one piece, but again, don't panic if it does break, because these are readily available. But just take time and it will come out. Now, when this pops out, you just want to check out the rubber seal. Okay, so if you look at the very back here, it's a bit difficult to see because it's a black seal. There is a black seal at the back of that, which stops the coolant from leaking when this is plugged in. As long as that is in good condition, it's still in place, it's not deteriorated or split, then we can just plug this straight back in when it comes to putting it all back together. Okay, so from underneath the vehicle, we have now removed both the coolant hoses. We've disconnected the cable to the module for the cooling fan. So from underneath, at the moment, we're currently done. Now, we do need to come up top because we actually now need to disconnect these AC lines that go to the condenser separately, so we can drop it down all as one piece. Now, you'll probably notice there are going to be some small caps on the service valves, so you just want to go ahead and just take these off. You don't have to, you can leave them on there. Now, word of warning, you do need to have the AC system degas because the system is constantly full of gas. The gas is a fluorescent gas, which is harmful to the environment, so it does need to be regulated and removed accordingly. So I've already gone to the garage and had all the gas removed from the system, and the system may have a little bit of residual pressure where the vehicle's been run and the compressor's been running a little bit, but there is no more refrigerant in the system, so we can now go ahead and disconnect. So down here we have two lines. We have one nut and one bolt holding the two lines in, and to make our life easier, we are going to remove the headlamp. And to remove the headlamp, all you need to do is take out two T30s. The lamp will just pop right out, and we'll disconnect the multi-plug and remove it from the vehicle. Okay, so that's the headlamp removed, and now we just need to go down here and remove the one big connector which is holding it in place. And with this connector, it's just a pull tab. You want to get that little tab there, pull it backwards towards the vehicle and pull the whole plug backwards. Okay, so now that we've got the headlamp removed, that now gives us much better access to the nut and the bolt that secures the high pressure and the low pressure lines to the condenser. So we're going to remove one 13mm nut and one 10mm bolt, and then just like the coolant clip to the radiator, we're going to very carefully wiggle these connections out of their seat. Okay, there we are. So that is the 10mm bolt and the 13mm nut. These lines, although they are metal, they are actually on flexible hoses. So from here you can just grab the top of this and just very slowly start to wiggle it whilst pulling up, and as you can see, that is up straight away, which is really good. There we are. So that is one line disconnected, and as you've got it off, you just want to make sure these seals are still intact. So we've got one on the underside there and another yellow one on the bottom just there. So because they are on flexi pipes, you can just kind of push them out of the way. And then this one is also on a flexi pipe, but further down, just give this a bit of a wiggle. Now I can already feel this is pretty loose, which is great. So again, just wiggle and pull up and let it come on its own accord. There we go, and that's up as well. And again, we have a seal down in the condenser and another seal just up there, which are all looking absolutely fine. If they're looking undamaged, clean, then you can reuse them again. And I've just pushed that out of the way so it gives us enough space to drop everything straight down. Okay, now we are nearly ready to remove the radiator and the condenser all out as one piece. So we have disconnected the coolant lines, we have disconnected the aircon lines, which is great. Now the only thing that's holding everything all in place is this long metal bracket, which is secured to the chassis by two 10mm bolts up there and on the opposite side. Now you can see that there are a couple of multi-plugs that are blocking us, so we just want to disconnect these off the plastic rivets that are holding these in place. Disconnect them, which is what I'm going to do, and then move them out of the way, and that will give us access to the two 10mm there, and then we'll take the other two 10mm off the other side. And then once we remove all four of those bolts, the radiator and the condenser are all going to suddenly want to drop all at the same time. So this is where we need to be a little bit careful. Okay, so just to show you what I've done, these are the two multi-plugs that were connected that I've now disconnected to give us access to the 10mm. Now obviously these clips were held together just by a small tab which you push down and then pull the plugs apart. That was for the big one, and for the bottom one it's slightly smaller but exactly the same. It's a push tab that you push and pull the plug apart. So these were also held into place with these tiny little plastic rivets that attach to the plug, and they are just a push fit into the hole which is conveniently located in the actual mount. I just use a small trim rule like this to pop them out. You can then disconnect them, move them out of the way, and actually this one is also attached around the inside of this mount, which will be coming down, so we have to disconnect it from there as well. Okay, so now we're ready to go. What I've gone and done is I've actually got the floor jack and actually put it underneath the frame that's holding everything in place, so that once I actually take the bolts out, I can slowly lower it down and make sure everything's okay. So I'm going to take this side out first, make sure everything's nice and loose, and then I'm going to go to the other side and start slowly removing the two 10mm. Okay, here we are again then, guys. So here is the whole unit out of the vehicle. Now I've just flipped it down on its face just to stop any residual coolant coming out of the radiator. But what we have as a pack, we have the cooling fan, we have the radiator, and the condenser is just inside there. Now what we have to do, this is basically all sandwiched together, so we now need to start taking it apart. I'm going to start with the cooling fan. The cooling fan is going to come off, then the radiator is going to get disconnected from the condenser, then we can replace the condenser separately and start putting it all together. Okay, so actually change of plan. I started from the front, and that is the active grille shutter that is removed, and down at the bottom here you've got one tab you need to push in, and same on the other side, which is just there, and as you push that in, the whole thing lifts up and off. Okay, now this is the perfect opportunity to show you exactly why we're here and exactly why we are changing out this condenser. So once the active grille shutter gets removed, this exposes the condenser. Now this is what we are replacing. Now you can probably see here already there is a nice big black stain just there, and another little one there. Now what these are actually leaks. This is where the oil inside the system, which is used to lubricate the moving parts of the compressor and keep everything nice and maintained, has slowly started to leak out. Now, like I said before, it's a sealed system and there shouldn't be any leaks. However, because the condenser is at the front of the vehicle and it gets most exposure from the front when you're driving, it is also the first thing to potentially get damaged. If you see that on your condenser, you do have a leak, and over time time, all the refrigerant gas will slowly come out of the system, and then when it gets below a certain threshold, there'll be no refrigerant or too little refrigerant to allow the whole AC system to work. And this is why we're changing out the condenser. Actually, a very simple procedure. Let's now go ahead and get this disconnected from the radiator, and then we can swap it out and put everything back together as we took it apart. Okay. First things first, now this condenser is actually only hooked onto the radiator via a clip there and a clip over here. However, this foam strip is actually stuck to both the radiator and the condenser. So all we want to do is just cut very cleanly and carefully down the middle, because sadly, whether you get a radiator or a condenser, for whatever reason, you do not receive a new foam strip. Now, I presume this is to stop dirt and debris going down in between, but it's there for a reason. We are going to try and keep this as intact as possible and just go straight down the middle. There we go. So that is now completely in half. So we should be able to separate it without that piece of foam stopping us from doing so. So like I said, there's one clip here which you push up and pull forward. Over here on this clip, not only do you have to lift it up at the top, you have to lift it up underneath. So it's almost like a sandwich on either side. And if you push both tabs down, that hasn't quite got it. There we go. And once that's free, hopefully the radiator will stay in place, we can pull this forward and then just lift it up of the locating tabs at the bottom of the radiator there. There we are, and that is the condenser removed from the radiator and therefore from the vehicle. So let's get the new one, compare it up and get it all back together. Okay, so here is the brand new one, which is actually an aftermarket product. This is not direct from Ford. Ford actually wanted approximately about $700 or $800 for a brand new one. Now I've already compared this to the old one. It is exactly the same. We've got the high pressure and the low pressure inlets and outlets on the side there, which is located perfectly, and we also have the receiver dryer, which is on the end. Now this is quite common. The receiver dryer, it just helps to remove any moisture that might be inside the AC system. Now a lot of the times the receiver dryer does actually come with the condenser on the side. There are vehicles out there that have a completely separate receiver dryer, but this one's very straightforward. It all comes as one component. So once we've compared it, we're now going to get it all back together in reverse order. So I'm going to try and do this as I go and explain it to you as well. So you can see we've got a nice convenient bracket to slot the bottom left in, and on the right hand side there's actually a thin fin which locates in a specific groove. Once that's in, you can then present the condenser up to the radiator. Now there is a locating tab there, so as long as that goes through the hole, you know it's in the correct position and it will snap into place. And then the top of the receiver dryer just locates behind that tab, just like that. There we go. Now you probably just heard that little clip. That is now just clipped into place and the condenser is now attached to the radiator. Okay, now I've got the condenser on, we can now go ahead and put the active grille shutter back on. And again, this should just all slot and clip into place with minimal effort, he says. And it literally was as easy as that. Okay, now that's all back in place, we've actually got the entire pack back together and we can already get it back in the vehicle and install everything in reverse order. Okay, and one thing just to be aware of, when you're jacking the pack back up into the vehicle, you do have these long plastic locators, and they locate just inside this plastic housing here, which is fixed to the top. But as long as when you're jacking the pack back up and that goes back inside the locator on both sides as well, you know that that is going to be located correctly. Okay, so here we are from underneath. Now I've very carefully jacked the rad pack back up into position. So what I'm going to do now is get the 2 bolts located loosely just by hand onto this side, get the other 2 bolts loosely by hand on the other side, make sure everything is sat correctly before I then do them up. And then I'm just going to crack on and start getting everything back attached in reverse order. Okay, so as you can see here, I've just taken off a couple of protective plastic caps. So these actually come with brand new seals already provided, so you don't need to swap them over from the old ones. And as long as the seals on the pipe sides are still intact, you can reuse them again. So again, making sure they're nice and clean, which they are, just want to gently pop that down, push it into place. It should be nice and easy, and then just pop the 10mm bolt in and do the same with the high pressure line. Just push that down and then get the 13mm nut and thread that on. Now there are tightening torques for the nut and the bolts here, and so they should be on the screen about now, but for the time being I'm just going to carefully screw this down by hand, and then when it gets tight just like that, I'm just going to nip it. Right, now you don't want to go too mad. So that is now everything all back together. Now we're going to get the headlamp in, the airbox back in, and fill the reservoir up with coolant. Okay, there we are guys, we are all done. I now need to take this back to the garage and get the AC system filled full of gas. They're going to vacuum everything out, so vacuum out all the moisture, all the air. They're going to do a leak test to make sure that the system is sealed, and then more importantly, they're going to then fill the system full of refrigerant gas. And then once that's done, we should start the ignition and put the AC on max, and we should get nice cold air. So on that note, if you learn a little something, enjoyed the video, you know what to do by now. Hit the like button, drop me a comment, more importantly subscribe. Thank you ever so much, and we'll see you guys of course in the next video.